Good morning. So I figured I would take this morning and tell you a little bit about myself. I have spoken regarding my profession, and you visited me at an open house. However, you don't know me. I was born and raised in California. My maternal and paternal grandparents were from Oklahoma and ended up retiring back here when I was about 13. So I spent a lot of my childhood traveling back and forth from California to Oklahoma. I know Highway 40 or I-40 or the 40 as I call it quite well. I can tell you the halfway point. I can tell you how long it takes to get to California to Oklahoma just by asking me, because we spent so much time on the road as a kid. I took my first airplane ride when I was, probably 12 or 13. My first trip to Oklahoma, my mom said I was in diapers. I think I was only a few months old. I made everyone's trip very enjoyable, and I'm being sarcastic 100%. I cried a lot. And I spent most of my childhood working for my parents. So when my grandparents, maternal, migrated west, my grandfather started a demolition company. And my whole entire family worked for that company up until my grandfather retired in about 94. So when I turned 16, my job was to take care of my siblings back and forth to school, sports, activities, but the other side of my job was to run permits, to run to job sites, check in with the crew, deliver money, funds, schedule septic inspections, well inspections, pick up permits, deliver permits, etc. So my entire childhood from 16 on up, or adolescence, I guess if you want to call it, was basically helping my mom run a company. That is where my foundation of real estate basically began, because our motto was that we took out the old so you could bring in the new. Now my profession is I basically sell the real estate so companies can either take out the old or bring in the new. So I went from one sector to another. That is how I have a foundation in permitting, scheduling, zoning, commercial, industrial, residential, because when we demolished stuff, we demolished everything. We demolished from industrial to commercial to residential, and we worked for a lot of the cities and the counties and the states. I know very much about eminent domain, because a lot of times when they needed to build a new highway or a new thoroughfare, they would take out all the residences in between those areas. And a lot of times Caltrans, which was the company that we would work for quite a bit, was the company or the state agency that would come in and seize the properties. And of course owners were paid so they could put in new highways. And as you know, California is ever growing constantly, and so we stayed very busy until about 2008, 2009, when the entire nation experienced the mortgage crisis of 2008, 2009. And that is when everything kind of fell apart. So we had multiple houses and cars, and because we had did very well for ourselves. And because of that mortgage crisis, and basically somewhat like a depression, I guess you can say, just not as drastic or as bad, we were left with nothing. Basically, our houses were foreclosed upon, our cars were repossessed, and my husband and I at the time looked at each other and it was like, we have a problem. So I said, why don't you go to Oklahoma? And he looked at me like I had lost my mind. And maybe I kind of did, because when you are forced to live off of the state and go from a 4,000 square foot home to a 900 square foot single wide with 4 children, you kind of do lose your mind. And the twins were only a year old, so you could imagine how chaotic our life was. So he ended up applying for a job out in Oklahoma, and he got hired by a gentleman who was our saving grace at the time. He ended up paying my husband at the time's way out here, gave him a place to live, and put him to work. And after about 6 months, we as a family moved out to Stillwater, Oklahoma. Hence why I sell a lot in Stillwater, because we ended up spending 3 years in Stillwater before we bought a home out towards the city. And it was the best decision that I ever made. I absolutely love where I live. I love where my kids go to school, the education system, the foundation of Oklahoma in itself. So while in Stillwater, I was working for the preschool, the Catholic preschool, St. Francis. And I worked there for a little over a year. And then the twins were not able to go into public school, so I took some time off and spent some time with them. And during that time, I just had this itching. Like, I wanted to get back into what I was in California, pulling, permits and, zoning. And it was just, it's almost like it's ingrained in you to do what you've always done, if that makes sense. But I didn't necessarily want to work for a demolition company. I wanted to go further and deeper into it. So that's when someone said, well, why don't you sell real estate? And I looked at them and I said, but I'm not a salesperson. I don't do sales. And they said, but don't you realize that a home will sell itself? And I said, no, that's not how it works. You have to know what you're doing. And they said, well, yes, you have to know what you're doing, but at the same time, if someone doesn't like the home, they're not going to buy it. It's not that you have to sell it. It's not like they walk into a car lot and you have to show them 50 different cars and, point out all the wonderful things about a car and push the car on them. A house is completely different. And I said, oh, okay, so I decided, why not? I'll take the course. And I couldn't stop. The minute I started the course, it was you have to complete the course in 6 months and then take the exam. And I completed the course in 2.5 months, took my exam, passed it, and it just opened up a whole new world for me. I love it. I love what I do. I absolutely couldn't imagine doing anything else. And my first year in real estate, I sold a little over $3 million, which, if anybody knows, your first year in real estate is almost the most difficult. And I took it and I ran with it. And being able to help people during every stage of life. If you think about it, you're buying a home when you first get married or when you're first out of college. You're buying a home after you've had a couple children and your starter home is too small. You are buying a home when, unfortunately, you get divorced and you have to sell the marital home. You're buying a new home. You're buying a home after your children have all left off to college and your family home is too big. You're buying a smaller home, an empty nest home. You're buying a home, you know, for your elderly parents to come live with you. You're buying a home or you're selling a home when you've realized that, you know, you can no longer live by yourself. You need to go into a, you know, elderly care facility. You're selling a home when you're moving out of state for a new job. You are buying a home when you've been relocated. Every stage of life, I'm there. And to be able to take the keys from someone at the title company and pass them on to somebody else who's going to make a house a home is the most wonderful feeling that anybody can experience. And I get to do that. And I get to be there. And there's a lot of misconceptions about a realtor. One, that they just put a sign in front of a house and they walk away and they get paid a lot of money. That's not true. There's also misconceptions of they make all kinds of money, but they're never there. For me, that's not true either. I'm really good at coddling, in a sense. Maybe it's the fact that I have 4 children. Maybe it's the fact that that's where my heart is I want to be there. I want to hold your hand, basically, figuratively speaking, throughout the entire process. Because home buying is stressful. Home buying is overwhelming, especially in today's market. It's crazy, especially when you're up against other buyers and there's 15 offers on the table and you're sitting here, you know, who wants to go through that alone? I wouldn't, and I wouldn't expect my buyer to either. So it's my job to be there. It's my job to tell you it's going to be okay. It's my job to explain that if it's not this one, then it'll be the next one. And if it's not the next one, then it's not meant to be until we find the right one. And I always use that for my female clients that have been married. I always use the metaphor or the example. We try on hundreds of wedding dresses, and then just one you put on, you just look in the mirror and you're like, this is it. This is the one that I want. And that's the same with a house. It's not something that you can easily purchase and then say, oh, I don't like it, I'm going to return it to the store. No, it's a major purchase that you're kind of stuck with for a while. And I want to make sure that it's the right one. I want to make sure that it's your wedding dress. I want to make sure that it's your tuxedo that you choose to marry the love of your life in. I want to make sure that when you walk in that door every single day and you look around, you're like, this is mine. This is where I'm going to make a home. This is where my family resides. This is where I'm going to watch my children grow up. That's what I want for you. And if I have to take phone calls at 10, 11, or 12 o'clock because you're overwhelmed and you're crying and you're stressed because you're afraid your offer is not going to get accepted, or you're afraid that you haven't found the right house yet, I want to be the person on the other end of the phone call telling you it's going to be okay. I want to be the one listening to your fears. I want to be the one that, you know, you call and you say, hey, you know, I seen something on Pinterest and this is what I want my kitchen to look like. This is the flooring that I've been dreaming of. These are the cabinets that I've been dreaming of, because it's my job to find it for you. It's my job to show you as many houses as I possibly can until we find that one. And that's why I'm here. So not only do you pay for my services, which is, yes, putting a sign in your yard, but it's so much more than that. It's all of the legwork that comes with selling real estate. It's putting a sign in the yard. It is listing it on multiple websites, multiple listing services, the media, the advertisements, the professional photographs, the showings, the scheduling of showings, offers, going through the offers, presenting the offers, explaining what the contract means, explaining all of the rules and the laws and the regulations. It's all of that. And to have somebody honest by your side, walking you through that step by step, there's no number that can be put on that, if that makes sense. And the late night phone calls and the stress and me listening to all of your wants and your needs and your fears and your anxieties, there's no price that you could put on that either. But I do it because I love it. I do it because I want to be that person. I do that for you. So you have the security and the confidence that you've hired the right person. And that's why I love what I do. And I wouldn't choose any other profession, honestly, than real estate. And it has its ebbs and flows. A lot of people make the assumption, oh, realtors, they're so rich, they have so much money. No, it's not like that either. We have ups and downs just like everybody else does. We have months where closings do fall apart. We have months where financing for our buyers falls apart, or sellers change their mind at the last minute and say, never mind, we don't want to sell our house, which right now is kind of not the case, but it does happen. And we have to go back to our clients and explain all of that. So yes, we're no different than anybody else. And yes, you do have people that take advantage. You do have realtors that are not so genuine, but that's the world that we live in. That's what makes each of us an individuals and unique. And not everybody is perfect. And not every realtor is perfect. Heck, I make mistakes. But at the same time, it's what teaches us to not make them again. It's what makes us who we are. It's what makes us a realtor. It's what drives us. It's how we learn. And because of all of these things and how much I love my job is why I also recently passed my broker's exam, because I wanted to continue learning. I want to know more for you. So when you call me on the phone and you ask me questions, I know the answers to them. And that is the utmost importance. So after living in Stillwater, after that whole spiel, but after living in Stillwater, we moved towards the city. And now I recently divorced, unfortunately. Live in Choctaw. My children go to a neighboring school, which I love. I love the school district. I try to attend school board meetings. I try to be involved in my community. Our office is located in Oklahoma City, but EXP agents don't necessarily have an office per se, because we are a cloud-based brokerage. But it doesn't change me, and it doesn't change the services that I provide. And it doesn't change the fact that I'm a realtor for you. And I've been doing real estate now for a little over 3 years. And like I said, I couldn't imagine doing anything different. And hopefully you've got a glimpse of what type of person I am. And the type of person I am is the same as the type of realtor I am. I have a huge heart, and when you're crying and upset because your offer didn't get accepted, I'm right there with you, crying and upset because our offer didn't get accepted. But On the flip side of that, I'm more determined to find us the right one. And that's the type of person I am. And whether it be in my personal life or my professional life, I'm very determined. And there's quite a few people that could probably attest to that. And it's not a determination like sales determined, like I'm going to push a house on you or push a car on you. It's not that type of determined. It's more of I'm determined to be the best realtor for my clients and the best individual as well that you can count on. So I hope that I have answered or helped you see me and where I come from, how I ended up in Oklahoma from California, and gave you a little bit more insight into my profession and why I do what I do. And I hope that all of you have an absolutely wonderful morning, afternoon, first day of March, Fat Tuesday, which is what today is. I can't believe that it's already Fat Tuesday. Time is just flying by. But before we know it, it'll be nice and warm outside, and I can't wait. So, again, have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. And if you wouldn't mind subscribing to my channel, that would be awesome, because the more videos I make, the more you get to know me and who you're hiring or who you're working with. And that's another thing, is that if you're a fellow realtor, the one thing that you can count on with me is that I'm very genuine. I'm very respectful. And if a client approaches me and they've been working with another realtor, I kindly step aside and say, I would rather you stay loyal to your realtor than basically cheat on them with me, because that's not fair, it's not respectful, and it's not nice. And guaranteed, if you take a client from someone, I promise you, it might be 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months down the road, but they're going to know who their client went to or who took their client. But you will be sitting across from the closing table with them at some point in time. So it is extremely important to always be respectful. And we're all in this together. And there's enough land for all of us to share. And not one realtor needs to be better than the other. We all need to work together for one common goal, and that's to serve our clients to the best of our abilities. And that's how I run my business as well. So, for my fellow realtors, my future clients, my current clients, hopefully I've given you a little bit of insight of who I am, how I work, and what I do. And again, happy March, and have a wonderful day.